I am delivering a difficult truth today, my loves. Some relationships aren't meant to be forever, and that's not because they were fake, and it's not because you were wrong to grow, but because the relationship or friendship or whatever that you were in was based on an old version of you. And when you shift and when you change, you will bring people along with you. You will have relationships that remain, friendships that remain, and there will be some that do fall away. Welcome to the Glow Up Revolution podcast, a podcast for overgivers, overachievers, and the strong ones in the room. We discuss everything from neuroscience-based burnout prevention to magic spells we can cast for upcoming job opportunities and everything in between. Welcome. Sit back, relax, and enjoy. Welcome back to the Glow Up Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Megan Winkler, and today we're wrapping up the series that has been going on for the past about 8 weeks. And so we're bringing it home with one final episode here before we start our next series, which is going to cover magic and the chakras. I think you're going to love it. But today we are stepping into a bit of the fire, and we're talking about what happens to the relationships in your life when you have an awakening, when you have a transformation, when you are evolving. This may sound familiar, and if it does, I love you, and I'm holding space for you, and I am here if you need anything. If it doesn't sound familiar, file this away for later reference when you're done listening, because this happens a lot when you start doing the work. So when you start shifting your identity and you start putting boundaries in place and you start reclaiming those parts of yourself, as you're doing all of that, you're shifting, you're changing into a new version of yourself. And this version is not worse. It's not selfish. It's not too much. It's just different. From the time that we were little kids, we were sold kind of the Disney version of romance, very Cinderella, Prince Charming, and that a romance is going to last forever. And it goes for our friendships too, depending on, your preferences and all that, and probably your identity as well. If you're around my age, growing up, you either love Stand By Me or Now and Then, or maybe both. And there was this idea in both those movies, right, when we were kids too, that it was like we were going to just be friends forever, or no one was going to be quite like those friends. I am delivering a difficult truth today, my loves. Some relationships aren't meant to be forever, and that's not because they were fake, and it's not because you were wrong to grow, but because the relationship or friendship or whatever that you were in was based on an old version of you. And when you shift and when you change, you will bring people along with you. You will have relationships that remain, friendships that remain, and there will be some that do fall away. And this is natural and normal, and most adults have friends that come and go. Maybe they reappear, maybe they don't, and that's okay. So in this series, we've talked about money, we've talked about time, we've talked about desire, a lot of these things. And today we're talking about people, which can bring up some emotions, right? So this could look like the partner who married someone that, and she's turning into somebody different. It's the best friend who liked their friend better when they were smaller and maybe not so outspoken, felt more comfortable with that person. It could be like the mother who raised a kid to need her approval and then doesn't know what to do when that child, even as an adult, shifts out of that needing her approval. Okay. So again, as with previous episodes, if you need to take a break and come back to the episode, if it gets too hard, totally cool. Also, if you need to talk to a therapist, please do so. This is a podcast. It is my opinion based on my work. There is no way I know what's going on in your life, in your relationships, your friendships, that sort of thing. It is not therapy. It is not medical, legal, or relationship advice. I want you to get the help that you need. I don't know why I felt like I needed that disclaimer here, but I just did. So, we're trusting our intuition and going with it. So, disclaimer done. Now take a deep breath with me and release it out. And let's dive in. So here's how this resistance usually starts. It's usually not with a fight. It's usually with like a flinch. And what I mean by that is, let me give you a couple examples. You say something that's honest and kind, but you like watch that other person's face, like do a quick little like, oh, they recalibrate in the moment. Or you set a boundary that you've never set before, and there's a pause on the other side of the phone that's like a half second too long. Maybe this sounds familiar. I've definitely experienced these things. For me, especially with my mother, I was the fixer and the peacekeeper and all that. And I stopped doing that. And that's when like those little hesitations, those little flinch reactions popped up. And it can happen with our partners. It can happen with our friends. It can happen with our family. Maybe your partner fell in love with a version of you who ran on empty and who mistook it for devotion, and you're moving out of that. And so when you rest, they don't know what to do with a woman who isn't like go proving themselves. Like it might just be like, whoa, what's this? It's a pattern interrupt, right? It happens with friendships, right? So like your friend was your person when you were both drowning together. Like maybe if you recall back, if you're in your 40s like me, you recall back to like your college friends. It's like y'all were starving college students together. You were eating ramen, you were drinking a real cheap beer, all of that. And so at some point, maybe you got to the point where you weren't drowning in bills anymore and you weren't living off ramen and Michelob Light or something like that. Mad Dog 40. And like that other person has that strange grief and says things like, you've changed. And it's kind of like this accusation. It's like, oh my God, you're abandoning me. You're not abandoning anyone. You just are changing and evolving. And in family, it can be like a mother who raised a daughter who needed her, and you're not that daughter anymore. And neither one of you has a script for who you are now and who you are to each other now. As the parent of an adult kid, it is really interesting to shift from parent child to parent adult child, right? So that you're relating to them adult to adult. It's just different. And so none of these people are villains. None of them are doing anything wrong. They are responding like rational human beings to a shift in you, because that shift affects the relationship. And if you think about it, every relationship is an agreement of sorts, and it's usually unspoken about kind of who each person gets to be. And looking at it from a very objective standpoint and without any sort of accusation or saying you did anything wrong, because you didn't. You, by changing, broke the agreement, right? And again, it's just unspoken. So even if you don't say a word, the other person can feel that there is a disconnection. There's something that like isn't the same as it was before. And it's not that you have betrayed them. It's just that now there's a misalignment. And so that misalignment, if it's left alone, can become distance. It can become resentment, that sort of thing, right? However, it doesn't mean that the relationship is over. Just that you need to realign with everyone involved, right? So that person needs to also meet you halfway. It's kind of like when you get new tires on your vehicle and they realign the wheels so that the tires wear all in the same way and it's like running at its best possible, in its best possible function, right? So before this alignment though, it's normal for us as the person going through the transformation to experience a little bit of guilt. So there's like this little bit of voice, like this little bitty voice in the back of your head that says, you're being selfish, or you're being cold, or you're the reason that this relationship is dying. And here's the thing, is the relationship is not necessarily dying, first of all. So let's not catastrophize things. But there's also truth under this voice, right? Because in all seriousness, if you shift, if you realign or recalibrate a relationship, it's it's going to cost something somewhere, if that makes sense, right? It's not like free. It doesn't just happen. It's almost like having a little sales tax on it, right? And the tax of losing the version of you that made the other person's life easier is sometimes that cost. Okay? So the version of you that made their life more comfortable might be the thing that gets cashed in, right? And I'm not going to pretend that this is not a big deal, because it can be a really big deal. Like, your partner or your friend could genuinely be grieving the relationship that was before and not understand where you're at now, right? Your mother may be like, oh my gosh, my daughter's completely unpredictable. She's off her rocker. What is wrong, right? Because sometimes if we're not in a very healthy relationship, for instance, we get the blame game pops up, right? But all this to say is that their grief is real, and it is still not evidence that you have done anything wrong. This is the reckoning, the moment where you have to hold to two things at once without collapsing into either one. Their response is legitimate, and your growth is also legitimate. You do not have to choose which one gets to be true. They can both be true at the exact same time. And your job is to resist the old reflexes that keep you small. The reflexes that say if somebody's hurting, it must be because you did something and you need to go fix it, right? And a lot of the times fixing it means shrinking back down in size. This is not easy. That reflex is also not compassion. It is guilt robed in compassion, putting on a mask, a costume of compassion. Okay. We've spent a lot of episodes talking about this and learning the difference. So you know this at this point. Again, not every relationship feels shaky right now is going to be over, right? So not everything that is like, oh, we've got to readjust and recalibrate is going to be a problem. Okay. Just sometimes they're overdue for a realignment. And it could also be due for a renegotiation. So what does renegotiation look like? Renegotiation sounds like telling your partner the truth about what you need right now, even though it's inconvenient, even though it's hard for you to admit, like a weakness. That is my challenge forever. Even though it changes the quote unquote deal that they signed up for. And then give them a real chance to meet you where you need to be met, instead of deciding for them in advance that they can't do it. Okay. So in a friendship, it might be something as simple as, I'm not who I was when we became close, and I still want you in my life, but I need this friendship to be able to hold who I am now. Okay. Maybe it's setting a boundary with a parent without any sort of apology attached to it, and just letting that relationship be a little more awkward for a while so that it can eventually be more honest. Okay. So renegotiation is not the comfortable middle ground between being the same as you ever were and losing everyone, right? It's a slower process. It's realigning. It's tapping into it. It's little shifts. Okay. It's slower than staying the same, and it can be scarier even than leaving, because you're really having to be a grown up here and confront the people in your life a little bit and help them understand that these are now your boundaries, or this is what you need. You need rest. You need help around the house. You aren't going to be talked down to like you're 11 years old anymore. You need to, shift where you have dinner because maybe you stopped drinking alcohol, and your friend needs to be able to make room for your journey, right? Because they're your friend. And you need to listen to those people in your life as well, because they're going to respond. And if they're responding like grown up and they are expressing their emotions over it in a mature fashion, mind you, having those conversations is awesome because you're going to come out the other side so much better. And I want you to also remember that some people will surprise you, right? So, like the friend you were sure would fade away instead leans in and gets super curious about this new version of you and is like, maybe to use the previous example of stopping drinking, she's like, hey, you know what? I've been wanting to cut back anyways. Let's go over here instead. Okay? The partner that you thought couldn't handle your growth actually turns out that they've been quietly hoping that you would finally trust them with the real you now because they've seen you moving and shifting and transforming. And now they're like, I want you to be you, right? So renegotiation works if you stop trying to manage the emotions or the reaction of the other person, okay? All you can do is just offer your truth. You cannot pre-chew it into something small enough that it costs them nothing, okay? And again, I think I would be really remiss if I didn't say that some relationships generally will not survive a reclamation of yourself. And it's not because you did anything wrong, not because you didn't try to realign and renegotiate, but because the other person is just unable to or will not meet you on the other side. And grieving those relationships is allowed. You're allowed to miss who you were together while knowing you can't go back to being that person anymore. You're allowed to cry over a friendship ending where nobody did anything wrong. You're allowed to love your mother and still need distance from her because you're not the daughter that she has formed and needs you to be, okay? Again, the grief, the pushback, all these things are not proof that you made a wrong choice. The grief is proof that the relationship mattered and that that person is valuable to you, okay? So here's what I want to leave you with, not only at the end of this episode, but also at the end of this series, is you do not have to become someone new to punish people who loved the old you. In fact, you're not becoming somebody new as any sort of punishment. You are becoming someone new because the old you was grounded in a lot of conditioned survival strategy, not self-forward strategy. And as a self-forward person, as someone who is coming to recognize and hold herself in sovereignty, in gentle power, you get to decide who stands with you. And sovereignty, my friend, is not about cutting everyone off who can't keep up with you. It's not about becoming untouchable or living on a pedestal or anything like that. It's that you now get to hold your own hand through the parts of life where people can't follow without deciding that their inability to follow makes you wrong for walking that path. Some relationships will renegotiate, recalibrate, and realign and come out more honest than they've ever been. Some will end, and you'll grieve them the way you grieve any relationship coming to an end. And both outcomes can live inside yourself and in your life. They are yours. You're not required to keep every relationship intact to prove that your growth was good. Okay, so sometimes we outgrow things, and that's okay. So I just want to leave you with that you are amazing and you are capable of incredible transformation. And the people who stay in your life are complete badasses because they see your magical, wonderful self for who you are and love you through all the phases and all the iterations and all the evolutions in your life. If you have enjoyed this episode, please like, share, subscribe, comment in the episode. Let me know what you thought. And join us over on Patreon. Patreon is free to join. But if you are a paid member at just $3 a month starting out, you get extra bonus content. And the extra bonus content today is a green flag fields guide. So instead of looking for red flags in conversations or in behaviors of those around us, we're looking for the green flags. So I've gone through and identified a whole list of kind of green flags for this person is with me. This person is on this journey and is cheering me on as I'm shifting and changing. So that is available over on Patreon. Thank you again for listening. I am so excited about our next series. Like I said, magic, the chakras. It's going to be so juicy. I've already started writing notes on it because I couldn't help myself. Anyways, thanks again for listening. All of the important links are in the show notes. And if you need anything, reach out to me at meganwinkler.com. I'm happy to help. And I will see you next week. As always, stay hydrated, take care of yourself, take care of your loved ones. And as always, stay magical. Bye, my friends.